Okay, so Steven Universe Future officially starts on Saturday, December 7th with a 4-episode, 1-hour special event. Which does mean we're sticking to the 12-minute episode format. Which I'm not entirely happy about, but I'll deal with it. It's fine. This is fine. Which means that, more or less, we have 1 week until the premiere. A little more than 1 week, but roughly 1 week until the premiere. So I do want to, of course, try to wring a little bit more theorization fodder out of that sneak peek that we got for the season. I know it sounds like I'm really reading into things to try to get views, but I do think this is a legitimately valid theory. And it's pretty interesting, so buckle up. Buckle up. Anyway, last week we talked about the possibility that the pinkish quartz character that we saw in the sneak peek might have been possibly the only real rose quartz ever to exist, created specifically to be a decoy for Rose on the battlefield, or just whenever Pink and Rose needed to be seen in the same place. That even though she doesn't look much like Pink's version of Rose did, she probably looked more like that before her corruption and then uncorruption, and she could have shapeshifted a little bit to hide any other details. And also, gems are dumb. Like, the rubies legitimately didn't realize that amethyst wasn't jasper, even though they know what color a jasper is. So I think it's possible that just in general, we can assume that gems as a whole might have let some of the specific details of the decoy rose quartz's appearance slip by them. That said, this is all of note for this particular video, because we see that pinkish quartz gem, that uncorrupted pinkish quartz gem, spending a lot of time with Steven. And we know that this is the season where Steven is going to have to deal with all of his past traumas, as well as, from what the description of the show says, some new power that he can't control, which is kind of what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff today, though. I promise this is going to be more or less coherent by the time we get to the end of it. So let's just jump right in, shall we? First of all, I want to point out that I think I was right. I know, you guys are shocked that I would ever proclaim that I was right about something. It's not what you expected, but I still feel like I need to justify my statement here. First of all, it does look like the quote-unquote Pink Steven powers that Steven displayed in his confrontation with White Diamond are powers that he can call upon again, that he can go chaos control again, for lack of a better term. And no, Super Saiyan is not a better term, because he's literally tapping the power of a gemstone. I thought it was clever when one of you guys commented it in my comment section and I stole it from you. And it also seems that if something is an allusion to something, as I suspect that it is, that I was right, that Steven was the source of White Diamond's color change, aka change of mind in Change Your Mind. Because when we see Steven going into chaos control mode, when he starts to glow, we see that the glow originates from his cheeks, almost like he's blushing. Just like the pink glow that affected White came from her cheeks, as if she was blushing. While that pink color doesn't spread to the rest of her body, the way that it spreads to the rest of Steven's body, it does spread throughout the interior of her head palace control room thing. Maybe that's the equivalent to that in White Diamond's case, considering where she was at the time. And we do see a full body pinkish White Diamond, almost as if she's affected by this specific power of Steven's again, and it affects her far more completely this time. So it's not as if there isn't precedent, at least in the opening of the show, for White Diamond being entirely pink. And when she turns entirely pink, as this opening suggests she's going to, if she starts to turn pink from her cheeks, I think that'll pretty much seal the deal on this theory being true at that point. Just getting that stuff out of the way. It doesn't really have anything to do with this week's particular theory, but I like to tally my wins. It's a weakness of mine. That said, specifically this week, we're going to be talking about what I think is going to be leading up to Steven unleashing his anger on, I'm assuming, Jasper in that scene where he goes full chaos control. Like, not specifically that Jasper shows up and tries killing him again, but what specific recent traumas are going to lead to that happening. And then how I think that happening might lead into him becoming the giant worm creature that we see in that same scene of the new opening, along with Pink White Diamond. And the reason I brought up that possibly real rose quartz again is because I think she contributes to that. Like, we see her palling around with Steven, we see him treating her really well, like Steven would, but it is possible that seeing this gem show up, who, even if she doesn't look exactly like Rose did, is what Rose at least pretended to be. It would be kind of like a ghost from Steven's past showing up suddenly and becoming part of his life. And if she did have the kind of relationship, the unique, super secret relationship that I think she might have had with Rose that I talked about in last week's video, then she may know things about Rose, or may know things that Rose did that literally no one else knows about. Like we see in the trailer in what looks like a flashback shot of Rose in her pre-rebellion quartz disguise, implying that there's going to be more flashback stuff to that period in Rose's / Pink Diamond's life. Maybe it's the presence of this supposed real rose quartz that spurs the discoveries which lead to that flashback sequence. Like, I know that my whole theory last week was that this supposed real rose quartz was a decoy for Rose during the war, but it's possible that she thought ahead enough to create her before she rebelled, and therefore before she donned her rebel rose quartz dress. But it's also possible that we're flashing back to something from Pearl's perspective. Because like I said again last week, I think that Pearl would have had to have known about this decoy if she existed. Like, think about it. If this other rose quartz was supposed to act as a decoy for Pink, aka Rose, when Rose Quartz and Pink Diamond had to be seen in the same place at the same time, then Rose Quartz's renegade Pearl would have had to be seen with Rose Quartz during those specific instances. And yet Pearl would have known that Pink Diamond was Rose Quartz, so she would have had to have known that the decoy was a decoy. So maybe they find this real Rose Quartz, uncorrupt her, and then Steven tries to forge a relationship with her, and she likewise tries to forge a relationship with him, but she in some way or another feels like she was wronged by Rose or something, and so Pearl has to tell Steven the story leading up to the creation of this character. Because I do definitely think that one way or another Pink created this character, if she is who I think she is. It's even possible that Steven will start to project the fact that he never knew his mother onto this person, and she's going to reject him, and that's going to affect him emotionally or psychologically or both, which would just be one more trauma to add to the pile of traumas that this kid has been accumulating over the years. He's like a trauma dragon. He has a lair where he piles up all of his traumas, and then at night he falls asleep on top of his traumas and doesn't let any of them go. That's a terrifying analogy to have spinning around in my head. Go away. Go away. It's not going to go away. I'm just going to move on. More or less, I'm saying that I think that Steven might see in this person the opportunity to share some of the baggage that Rose left hanging on his back when she pieced out of life to have him, and that this person is going to reject him, and he's going to be hit with all of that trauma again. And then Jasper is going to come back into his life, and she's going to do the same I don't want to listen to Steven thing that she's been doing since she literally met him. And he's a kid going through puberty. His body's changing. His brain is changing. I think he's going to decide that he doesn't want this for himself anymore. That he just wants things to be easy. that he wants things to be peaceful, that he doesn't want to have to keep cleaning up after Rose's messes. And I think that's going to lead to this scene here from the sneak peek teaser, where he realizes that he's acting the way that Pink did. Because I think that's the clear meaning behind this scene, that he, perhaps in a Pink Diamond memory, acts out Pink being a selfish, bratty person, and then Steven makes the connection between her entitlement and his insistence that everything just get better because that's the way he wants it to be. And while I definitely don't think that making that connection between himself and his mom would be valid, because she was just being a brat, whereas he doesn't want to face constant trauma, Steven's the kind of kid who would still make that connection, I think. Like, maybe he even starts to demand a more normal life before everything goes off the rails again this coming season. And he sees that as selfish, because I guess in a small way it could be actually considered selfish, and then things just escalate from there, making it worse. I think that's going to lead to a confrontation between Steven and Jasper, where he, instead of tapping all of his other emotions, for the first time ever, taps his anger. Perhaps even a more fiery version than the stoic seriousness that Pink Steven displayed against White Diamond. Something akin to that same stoic seriousness, but with anger behind it, fueling it. But even that doesn't explain how he could corrupt or mutate or whatever into a giant worm monster, because that doesn't seem to be the way that gems work. So what if Steven tries to bring too much of his power out, more power than his human body can hold, and either his body tries to adapt and mutates into something bigger to contain it, or he actively tries to transform his body, to shapeshift his body into something capable of harnessing that power. And then let's say that as that's happening, all of that trauma catches up with him. Maybe he loses control of the shapeshift, which is just the straw that breaks the camel's back. All of that trauma catches up with him, and his mind goes off the rails, for lack of a better term. And again, this doesn't seem to be the way that gems work. This doesn't seem to be a thing that could happen to a regular gem. But Steven's not a regular gem. He's also not literally a fusion, but he's also technically a fusion, especially since he literally refused with half of his being. I theorized a while back that while Steven has always technically been a fusion, that ever since fusing with Pink Steven, he might be way more literally a fusion. And we know that traumatic experiences, that triggering experiences, can affect fusions in far more visceral ways than they affect regular gems. Like Garnet almost coming apart when she first saw the forced fusion experiments, even though we know that she has coping mechanisms that help her deal with when her fusion psyche goes off the rails, for lack of a better term, because she passed that wisdom down to Stevonnie when guilt from Connie bled into the trauma that Steven was suffering at the time and caused Stevonnie's psyche to go off the rails, for lack of a better term. So what if instead of, I don't know, for example, let's say Pink Steven and Steven unfusing, they instead lose control of their form, Steven's form, in a different way, causing his body to corrupt until he can work through the trauma that he's suffering, at least to the point that he can start handling it more healthily than he has been in the past. This would be a super cool turn of events, because it would give all of the other characters, maybe even characters like the Diamonds, a chance to use what Steven has taught them over the years to bring Steven back from the brink, which would be a fantastic thematic way to end off the series. It fits perfectly in line with the descriptions of the show that we've been getting so far, it seems to be substantiated by how, frankly, re-traumatized Steven seemed to be in the teaser, as well as how angry he seemed to be, and that power coming out from within him, expanding outward throughout his body. I really do think this is a thing that could happen. There's a lot of speculation here, and frankly, it's probably not going to happen, at least not exactly the way that I've predicted it here. But I do think it's interesting to think about. I mean, Steven has been, in one way or another, dealing with all of his past traumas for a while now, in a way that allows him to function. And it's not like he hasn't always been like his mom in one way or another. He has a lot of her better qualities, and he's displayed them throughout the run of the show. But he also has all of that guilt associated with what his mom has done in the past, weighing on him constantly. I could see some realization, even if it isn't entirely correct, that he is more like his mom in the negative ways than he thought he was, coupled with the reappearance of Jasper and Eyeball and Aquamarine. Even I haven't even talked about the fact that they're coming back too, apparently, just piling on to what this kid has to carry with him every single freaking day. I think that's the kind of thing that could finally push him over the edge and cause all of that trauma to manifest itself in some sort of physical way. And you can't tell me that a giant frickin' Steven worm wouldn't be a very visceral way to visualize that. As per usual though, guys, what do you think of any of the ideas that I put forth in this video? Do you think I'm on the right track? Or have I gone off the rails, for lack of a better term? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.